أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. وأعوذ به من شر نفسي إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء إلا ما رحم ربي. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وخاتم الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين نبينا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم وهو أحسن القائلين وأصدق الصادقين: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the purification of the souls and the enlightenment of the hearts, and for the hastening of the reappearance of the awaited Saviour, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajah Sharif, enlighten your souls and the atmosphere with the recitation of salawat upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Salamun Alaikum wa Rahmatullahi wa Barakatuh. It is considered to be the greatest verse in the Holy Quran, memorized and recited by millions of human beings around the world, and deemed to be a mesmerizing ayah in the holy book, which has a number of key important principles and foundations of the religion of Islam. Ayat Al Kursi, which is translated in English as the verse of the chair, or wrongly as the verse of the throne, is deemed to be one of the most significant verses that many human beings and many believers have indeed memorized. You find this verse is one that we pay much attention to. Sometimes you and I have been under the direction of the memorization of this blessed ayah from a young age. Some of us indeed have come to know about the benefits of the recitation of this blessed ayah. Some of us don't leave a day unless that we recite at least once Ayat Al Kursi. In some households, you find Ayat Al Kursi being placed on the walls in special ways in order to increase the barakah. Indeed, when it comes to the world of narrations, that of the Sunni as well as the Shia school of thought, you'll find the emphasis upon Ayat Al Kursi, ayah number 255 of Surah Al-Baqarah. One narration, for example, is from the Holy Beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When he was asked about the importance of this ayah, he responds, Sayyidul Quran or Sayyidul Suwar Al-Baqarah. When it comes to the head of the chapters of the Quran is Surah Al-Baqarah. وَسَيِّدَةُ الْآيَاتِ Ayatul Kursi. In other words, it's given this particular tashrif, it's given this particular honor. Our holy fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad Al-Baqir, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, comes forward to highlight the importance and the great benefit of the recitation of this ayah. It is narrated that he said, "Man qara'a ayatul kursi, saraf Allahu anhu alfa makruh." Whomsoever recites Ayatul Kursi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect them from 1,000 misfortunes in dunya and 1,000 misfortunes in akhirah. Then the Imam would say, the least of which in dunya is poverty, and the least misfortune that an individual who recites Ayatul Kursi will attain on the day of judgment or in akhirah is adhabul qabr. As you find, the recitation of Ayatul Kursi is truly remarkable in terms of the benefits and the thawab and the reward and the impact that it brings for the believer, for the individual. Narrations tell us, for example, it protects the household from shaitan and jinn. Narrations tell us it helps as far as memory and the strengthening of the memory is concerned. Narrations tell us that it brings about rizq. Other riwayat tell us it illuminates the grave in alamul barzakh. We have a beautiful narration in which an individual asked the Holy Prophet, he said, is the Quran better than the Torah? The Prophet of Islam says there is an ayah in the Quran which is better than all of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's holy books, and that's Ayat Al Kursi. That in itself highlights the status that is enjoyed by this particular verse. Amir al-Mu'mineen wa Imam al-Muttaqeen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi states that the Prophet of Islam would continuously say to him, alayka biqira'at Ayatul Kursi. Keep reciting Ayatul Kursi. فَإِنَّ فِي كُلِّ حَرْفٍ مِّنْهَا أَلْفُ بَرَكَةٍ. In every letter of Ayatul Kursi, there is 1,000 grace and barakah that exists. وَأَلْفُ رَحْمَةٍ. As well as barakah, there is what? Mercy in every letter that exists in Ayatul Kursi. And indeed so much more narrations that, for example, the Holy Beloved Prophet was asked by a group of people who were going to Sham, can you teach us something that will help us and will protect us? The Prophet would say, make sure when you sleep at night, before you go to sleep, perform tasbih, which he taught to his beloved daughter Sayyidatun Nisa, as well as recite Ayatul Kursi before you go to sleep. Another narrations say the importance and the barakah and much reward attained when you and I recite this blessed ayah after the fara'id, after the wajib salah. Question. People ask, what is Ayatul Kursi? Is it 255? Is it 256 and 257? These three verses together? Or is it 255 only, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins with Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum? Does it include la ikraha fi ad-din, the next ayah? Yes. Does it include Allahu waliyul ladhina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur, verse 257? Or is it only 255? It's an interesting discussion that the commentators of the Quran have had. Yes. Many of them, however, seem to be of the opinion that Ayat Al Kursi is indeed one. It is verse 255 of Surah Al Baqarah. And the other two ayat is recommended to be recited after Ayat Al Kursi for more reward. But the ayah itself is what? Is 255. Indeed, this is important when it comes to, for example, Salatul Wahsha. Yes, that is highly recommended to be recited. This is Ayatul Kursi. Now, what is the evidence? The evidence presented, number one, is the fact that it is termed as a singular ayah, Ayatul Kursi, not ayat, not three. Therefore, it should be one. Number one. Number two, the word Kursi is only mentioned in 255, not in 256, neither in 257. Therefore, it is deemed to be only the first ayah. And thirdly, the existence of so many narrations that point to this reality. Note this particular narration from Amir al-Mu'mineen, which states that the Holy Prophet said to him, Ya Ali, inna fiha Ayatul Kursi 50 kalima, fi kulli kalima, fi kulli harfin 50 baraka. That this ayah has 50 words. In every word, and as in the narration we recited before, in every letter has numerous barakah. When we count ayah 255, we find that it has how many words? 50. Therefore, this narration points to the fact that that is, or the strong suggestion that that is indeed the ayah known as Ayatul Kursi. Likewise, when we come to the cause of revelation, sababun nuzul of ayah 256, La ikraha fi ad-din, what do we find? We find a man by the name of Abu al-Husayn in Madinatul Munawwara. His two sons were Muslim, yet later he discovered that they'd become Christians. They've somehow turned against the religion of Islam and have embraced Christianity. He was very saddened. He was indeed quite upset, according to Allama Tabarsi in Tafsir Majma'ul Bayan, that when he was upset, he went to the Holy Prophet. He said, Ya Rasulullah, I intend to force them to become Muslims again, to come back, to revert back to Islam again. And I do not accept the fact that they have turned into Christianity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed that ayah. La ikraha fi din. There is no compulsion in religion. Therefore, this is also suggested to be what? A separate verse. Because we have a beautiful narration from the Holy Beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, which states what? Which states the following, that whomsoever recites the first 4 ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah and recites Ayat Al Kursi and recites the 2 ayat after it and recites the last 3 ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect them from the shaitan. They will not forget the Quran. And this is also an indication that the Prophet of Islam would say Ayat Al Kursi and 2 verses after it, which is La ikraha fi din, as well as Allahu waliyul ladhina aman. Now, when it comes to Ayat Al Kursi, of no doubt, all these narrations about its barakah and significance, when you and I recite it, when we encourage our children, the youth, to memorize it and to recite it, there is indeed benefit. But no doubt, the benefit increases manyfold when you and I are aware and cognizant of the meaning of Ayat Al Kursi. What does it actually refer to? This tadabbur, this reflection that we spoke about, is indeed crucial. Why? Because the Quran says without tadabbur, the hearts are sealed. One of the most crucial prerequisites for the unlocking of the potential to understand the Quran is the heart. Quran says, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Do they not reflect and contemplate over the Quran? Or is it that their hearts are sealed or somehow locked? Meaning, there is a very important relationship between the heart and understanding the Quran. A pure heart, a submissive heart, a heart which is softer, a heart which is cleaner, is more able to understand and grasp and be illuminated by the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than a heart that is sealed. Than a heart that is what? Drowned in disobedience and sin. Because the Quran says, Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala brings down rain. أنزل من السماء ماء فسالت أودية بقدرها. Allah says when the rain falls from the heavens, certain vessels can take it and certain can't. It depends on its capacity. It is related on its ability to withstand the rain. The ulama say this is a reference to the heart. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the more you purify the heart, the more you'll be able to understand the Quran. The more we work harder to be of the individuals who have qalbus salim, the submissive heart, the more we can be inspired by the Holy Quran. People ask, sometimes I can't understand. I'm trying, I'm reading the translation, I'm seeking to be illuminated, but it's not happening. Part of this is because, sadly, of the state of our souls, state of our heart. Therefore, the first level in understanding verses such as Ayat Al Kursi is to seek forgiveness, is to undertake the path of spiritual purification. That's the first level. The second level is with regards to Ayat Al Kursi's controversy. In which way? We find today, as far as understanding what Kursi is translated bizarrely by many translators of the Quran as the throne. I found this very difficult to take because in the Quran we have 2 concepts. We have the Arsh and we have the Kursi. And Arsh is translated in English to throne. Kursi is the chair. Yes. And therefore the translation of it as the verse of the throne is inaccurate. Because we have verses such as one in Surah Taha where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa. Yes, the word arsh is used. Let's understand Ayat Al Kursi very briefly, but pay more attention to the area of contention and how the school of Ahl al Bayt presents its opinion with regards to the actual meaning, or what the Ahl al-Bayt have come forward to explain what Kursi is, what is the reality of Kursi. Allahu la ilaha illa huwa Al-Hayyul Qayyum. Now, why is Ayat Al Kursi so significant? One of the reasons is because of its emphasis upon the divine attributes, the attributes of the essence, the attributes of action, the negative attributes, as-sifatul fa'liya, as-sifatul amaliya, as-sifatul silbiya, yes, as-sifatul dhatiya. These are all part of the discussions when it comes to the subject of Tawheed in Islamic theology, that when it comes to Ayat Al Kursi, it is beautifully demonstrating the essence and the importance of Tawheed and monotheism. Al-Hayyul Qayyum means he is the one who has life and does not taste death, and the one who sustains and gives life to everything, and without him no creation is able to remain alive. No creation is able to function. The sustainer, because the Quran tells us some groups, some religions believed that the hands of God is tied, that he created and left creation to be. But he says no, Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum. Al-Qayyum is an exaggerated term of qiyam, means to maintain, to keep things alive. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who sustains everything. Yes, Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. La ta'khudhuhu sinatun wa la nawm. Normally, when human beings undertake a particular task, they reach a position where they get tired. Their energy levels deplete. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Sina means the state before sleeping. You know, drowsiness. When sometimes I see from the minbar, some people go through. Yes. The state just before they're about to fall asleep. Just about like this. They're struggling on, especially after 19 and a half hours or 20 hours of fasting. They're about to completely knock out. This sinatun means drowsiness. Wala naum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says nothing such as this, of course, affects him. There is no such thing when it comes to his divine essence. Lahu ma fi samawati wa ma fil ard. This is a demonstration of the malikiyya, the ownership, the magnitude, the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To him belongs everything in the heavens and the earth. Yes, Maliki Yawm ad-Din, the owner of the day of judgment. Sometimes an individual is a malik, he's a king, but he's not necessarily a malik. He's not necessarily the owner. Could be a king of a country, but not necessarily own that country. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he indeed is the owner of everything. Man dha alladhi yashfa'u indahu illa bi'idhnih. That there is no one who will be able to attain intercession or actually give intercession on the day of judgment without the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, that the idea exists that the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who grants individuals the ability to intercede. It is a part of his permission to intercede, to people to intercede. من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم. It's all encompassing knowledge. What is behind them, meaning dunya, what they did, and وما خلفهم is dunya, وما بين أيديهم is what will happen to them towards the day of judgment, where their destiny is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge is what? Is in no shape or form incomplete. He is the one who is what? The absolute perfect being, and everything belongs to him, and he's the omnipotent, omnipresent. His knowledge what? Is complete. Yes? يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يؤودون بشيء ويعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يؤوده. Yes, the Quran says nothing is missed from him whatsoever. إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ وَسِعَ كُرْسِيُّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. This is the point of discussion. This is the point of dissension or differentiation between the different schools of thought. Now let's understand how people have looked at this وَسِعَ كُرْسِيُّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. His kursi, his chair is what? That encompasses everything. Now, find that as far as this is concerned, there is a movement which is known as the anthropomorphism movement, which means the attribution of characteristics that human beings have to the divine. Because there are verses in the Quran that, for example, says, Yadullahi fawqa aydihim. The hand of God is above theirs. That they will look at the face of God on the day of judgment. Yes. And therefore, there are different theological schools of thought in understanding these verses, which are known as mutashabih, metaphorical verses. The first school of thought is the Ash'arite school of thought. They come forward and say that as far as the Kursi and the Arsh is concerned, the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is something that we cannot comprehend. It is something that we do not understand. Therefore, we ignore. We do not talk about it. Talking about it is bid'ah. Because I remember reading the founder of the Maliki school of thought, Malik ibn Anas, one day was asked by somebody. He said, كيف استوى الرحمن على العرش? How did he sit on a throne? Because, in Surah Taha, that's how some people understand it. The response was, هو استوى ولا نعلم كيف استوى. He sat. I don't know how he sat. Yes. Then all of a sudden that individual wasn't happy. So he said to him, how can he sit on a particular throne? Yes. And the response was, you are of the people who have gone astray. That you are asking too much. You should not delve into these areas too much. Our sixth Imam says, I'm surprised by the people, according to the narration, who says God sits on a throne. Yes, if he sits on a throne, that means the throne can encompass him. That means the throne is more powerful than him. Yes. How can you accept that particular physical attribution? That's the first school. The second school says, no, a throne and the kursi are physical entities. And they cite narrations that exist in the world of hadith, such as one in Al-Bukhari, Tafsir al-Quran, hadith 4471 from Abu Huraira, that the Almighty on the day of judgment places his feet in Jahannam and says to it, Hal min mazid, do you want more? Yes. So they attribute this and the others with relation to the throne and the kursi, that it is a physical entity. It is a kursi. It is a chair, but it's vast and it is something beyond our understanding, but it is a chair. And that's a literalist, very superficial understanding of the Holy Quran, that indeed the group of people known as the Salafis movement have undertaken. A third group of scholars have said, no, there are 9 spheres that exists. 7 of them is the 7 heavens. Then there is the Kursi, and above it is the Arsh. But we don't know the reality of that. So they only limit themselves to the 9 spheres that exist within the universe. The fourth group of scholars come forward, and amongst them are quite a few from the school of Ahlul Bayt. They say, no, of course, this is a metaphorical reference to the power and the majesty and the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They say, just like how the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you and I to understand certain concepts, therefore He uses terms that you and I use in dunya. Therefore you find that when a king sits on a throne or a chair, that means they are in control of everything. That means everything is under them. This is something that indicates the power, the all-encompassing majesty of the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what the fourth category. The fifth category, however, is perhaps the most interesting and one that has delved further into the verses and has reflected more into the other ayat in the Holy Quran. The fifth category of the ulama, including Allama in Al-Mizan and others, have come forward and said, no, this is, according to understanding of the riwayat of the Ahlul Bayt, haqiqatun mawjuda. It's a reality that exists. Arsh is there. Arsh and Kursi are there, but not necessarily physical. No doubt. That's the first level. But they say there are verses in the Quran which seemingly point to a very important reality about this issue. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes and says, وَيَحْمِلُ عَرْشَ رَبِّكَ فَوْقَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ ثَمَانِيَةٍ. In chapter 69, verse 17. Allah says that the Arsh of Allah is carried by 8. Carried? If it is something which is just the power of God, how can these 8, which according to riwayat are either 8 malaika or 4 from the prophets, yes, of Ulul Azm, and the rest are 4 from the Ahl al-Bayt, including the Holy Prophet and Amir al-Mu'mineen. The idea is this carrying of the Arsh, how can be understood? Then there is another verse, وَكَانَ عَرْشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ. His throne is over the water, in chapter 11, verse 7. Chapter 40, verse 7. الَّذِينَ يَحْمِلُونَ الْعَرْشَ وَمَنْ حَوْلَهُ يُسَبِّحُونَ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّهِمْ. They're carrying the arsh, the throne of God. Therefore, they come forward and say, according to the riwayat of the Ahl al-Bayt and the understanding, the arsh and the kursi are related to the knowledge of the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a center of the ilm of the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala, in addition to the center of the administration of the creation. And when these ayat say that these individuals or creations of God, they carry the arsh or they carry the kursi, it means they're being given this knowledge from the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. They've been bestowed with this specific knowledge from the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, the understanding that they present is this, that the arsh and the kursi are not physical entities. Neither are they just simply denoting the power of the Almighty. But because of the riwayat of the Ahl al-Bayt, it denotes the all-encompassing ilm of the Almighty. And they link it by the fact that many verses that speak about arsh also speak about shafa'ah. This indicates that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware that when He gives knowledge or when He gives the ability for an individual to intercede, He knows that they will intercede in the correct manner. Therefore, it is part of His what? His knowledge. Hence we find the beautiful hadith from our holy sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, which comes forward and says and tries to denounce all these attributes that are given to God which belongs to human beings. And he says, comes forward and says in Tawheed al-Mufaddal, he says, من زعم أن الله من شيء أو في شيء أو على شيء فقد كفر أو فقد أشرك. Whomsoever claims that God the Almighty is in something, or is on top of something, or sits on something, then they have practiced shirk and polytheism. Yes. The A'imma alayhum as-salam, one of their objectives was to refine and exonerate the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala from these particular attributes, and indeed present the pure tawheed that the Quran indeed brings forth. That it is not about a kursi that is somehow physical or a being sits on it, because the Quran says, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. There is nothing like Him whatsoever. Yes, and the human being is not able in any shape or form to comprehend the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala with this particular aql that is indeed limited in its creation by the Almighty Jalla wa ala. And hence we find the importance of what? Of referring to the Ahl al-Bayt in understanding Ayat Al Kursi, in understanding the verses of the Quran. And indeed, this evening we are also remembering an individual who sought and struggled and indeed worked tremendously hard throughout his life to disseminate the ulum of the Ahl al-Bayt, much loved by many. Indeed, I had the pleasure of knowing him whilst I was at university in the 90s. He used to come and deliver excellent sermons and lectures for the university students in central London. Al-Hajj, Al-Marhum Mustafa Mawji, rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh, an individual of kindness, an individual of wisdom. I recall that many a times when it comes to after Salatul Jum'ah and the khutbah, he would come to greet, he would come to support, and we would have a discussion about what was discussed, all positive, all to build. And indeed, this is an example of how far-reaching his impact indeed was, his teachings, his continuous efforts through many ways, including the utilization of emails and social networking and other ways to keep the message of the Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam alive. And indeed, I'm told that he was one of the few Zakireen and those who remembered the Ahl al-Bayt who indeed mastered and delivered these majalis in the Gujarati language. Definitely he leaves a void in that particular area. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless his soul as we remember his arba'een, and indeed raise him with Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. And how many times he remembered the masa'ib of the Ahl al-Bayt, including one particular musibah that indeed he used to cry when he used to listen to it and when he used to recite it, and that is of the oldest son of the Imam alayhi salam, Ali al-Akbar. When he used to recite the masa'ib, what what can be said about Ali al-Akbar? What kind of heart would not shed tears for Ali al-Akbar? Yes, when he would stand in front of his father seeking permission to go to the battlefield, that in itself is heartbreaking, because the Imam would say to him, would not say anything to him except, come towards me, my son, let me hug you and you hug me, and we bid farewell. And indeed, what the Imam would say about Ali al-Akbar was truly unique, isn't it? That he would say, oh Allah, be witness against these people. فَقَدْ بَرَزَ إِلَيْهِمْ غُلَامٌ أَشْبَهُ النَّاسِ بِرَسُولِكَ صلى الله عليه وآله خَلْقًا وَخُلُقًا وَمَنْطِقًا. He resembles the Prophet in his appearance, in his speech, in his mannerism. Every time we wanted to look at the Prophet, we look at Ali al-Akbar. His voice on the 10th of Muharram in the morning reciting adhan reminded them of the beautiful voice of the Prophet of Islam. That in itself breaks the heart, the wada' of Aba Abdullah and his beloved son Ali al-Akbar. But I tell you one thing that indeed the mothers can relate to is Layla, isn't it? And how she was desperate to see her son. When Imam said, go and pray, go and supplicate to Allah, she sits on the prayer mat and she chooses her words carefully and says, Ilahi bi-ghurbati Aba Abdullah. Hussein is alone on the plains of Karbala. There is no one to support him. I ask you, by the fact that Hussein is ghareeb, return me back my son Ali al-Akbar. When he returns, he bids farewell to his mother. The narration says his mother said to him, Ali, before you go, I want you to do something for me. She says, my mother, I will do whatever. She says, all I ask you is to stand before me. I want my eyes to look at you, because I know in a few moments what kind of sight will I look at. I want you just to stand there. I want my eyes to look at you. Indeed, when he fell from the horse and he called out his father, alayka minni salam, Aba Abdullah. Imam leaves towards the battlefield, but he does not leave towards the direction of Ali al-Akbar. His daughter Sukayna said to him, Father, Ali, my brother, is this way. Why did you go this way? He says, my daughter, do not blame me when my son calls me for help and I'm not able to answer. I do not know which direction to go. He sits next to Ali. He lifts his head. He says to him, Bunay ala dunya ba'daka al-afa. My son, there is no earth of dunya living after you. Yes. At that moment, he sees his son smiling and at the same time grieving. He says, why are you smiling and why are you grieving? He says, my father Hussein on my right is the Prophet of Islam. He has quenched my thirst from the pond of Kawthar. But on my left is my grandmother Fatima. She is slapping her cheeks, calling out, oh my son Hussein, who will help you, my son Hussein? ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين وإنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us with the love of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. We pray to him subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with the Ahl al-Bayt, to allow us to understand the Holy Quran in depth, and for the verses to penetrate our hearts. I've been asked by the mu'mineen, the brothers and the sisters of SJ, to remind the brothers and the sisters, the mu'mineen here, about this campaign that they have with regards to bringing your own plate and your own mug. Indeed, there is so much that we can do to help the environment. Apparently, something like 54 billion disposable cups are thrown away every year, and for every cup, it takes 500 years for it to be recycled. Therefore, as believers who indeed know that everything is being granted to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as blessing, we look after the environment in any shape or form, and therefore this is recommended to be performed. That's number one. Number two, it is an absolute honor and privilege for me in the last 15 nights to be here with the mu'mineen, with the blessed community of Hujjat. I extend my gratitude to the executive committee, to the Honorable President Sheikh Mustafa, and to all mu'mineen and mu'minat for their support. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me for anything that I may have mentioned which is incorrect, which had been inadvertently out of mistake. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you all and to indeed grant us all tawfiq and maghfirat and the acceptance of a'mal during the month of Ramadan and beyond. Please remember Al-Marhum Al-Hajj Mustafa Mawji and all of your marhumin with the recitation of Surah Al-Mubarakah Al-Fatiha, but before it salawat.